seat, Alberta gaining 3, British Columbia gaining 1. These seat gains will not be impacted with the introduction of a 2021 grandfather clause. What this means is that under the government's bill that I am pleased to support is that no province will have less than the number of seats they had during the 43rd Parliament, which I had the honour of serving in 2021. And Ontario, Alberta, and British Columbia would maintain those seat increases. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It was a pleasure speaking on this important subject.
The honourable member will still have 6 minutes the next time that this matter is before the House. Statements by members, déclaration de députés. The honourable member for Vancouver-Granville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of all Canadians, I want today to congratulate our Canadian Olympic and Paralympic athletes who represented us at the recent Summer and Winter Games. As we cheered from home, Team Canada delivered remarkable performances in sport excellence, bringing home 96 medals, achieving many personal bests, and exemplifying fair play. They represented Canada with grace, dignity, and incredible focus. Bien que le parcours net.
Even though it wasn't always easy over the last few years, they were able to train and persevere throughout the pandemic. Our athletes did what they did best. They showed determination, resilience, and commitment.
Models and inspire us to all be the best that we can be. The Government of Canada applauds their achievements and thanks them for representing our country so incredibly well. And on behalf of all members of this House, to all our athletes, I say congratulations. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Cariboo, Prince George.
After 2 long years of restrictions and lockdowns, it's great to see our country finally getting back to normal. In Cariboo, Prince George, our communities, our friends, and our families have been through a lot. But despite the adversity, our Cariboo spirit is stronger than ever. Summer is just around the corner, and we're looking forward to welcoming back visitors from around and across Canada and around the world to take in some amazing events. Billy Barker Days is back. The Banner Fair Show is back. Cariboo, Prince George, we're back. This summer it's going to be amazing. We're also hosting the 32nd BC Summer Games, and this year marks the first season of the Prince George Kodiaks football. Go Kodiaks! Go Kodiaks! As you all know, rodeo season is my second favorite time of the year. After a 2-year hiatus, the Quesnel Rodeo is back. And Madam Speaker, the greatest show on dirt, the Williams Lake Stampede is back. Yeah!
Northwest Territories.
Madam Speaker, multiple sclerosis is Canada's disease. More than 90,000 Canadians live with MS, one of the highest rates of MS in the world. Every day, 12 more Canadians are diagnosed with MS. I recently met with the MS Society of Canada as part of MS Awareness Month and learned about the recent research breakthrough showing the strongest evidence to date of association between Epstein-Barr virus and the onset of MS. I ask that we all harness this momentum and commit to increased funding for MS research so we can answer the most fundamental questions about MS. What causes it? Who gets it? And how can we stop it? Together we can ensure that Canada maintains its position as a world leader in MS research. Merci Cho. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Madam Speaker, I'm proud to rise in the House today to carry the voice of people of Mirabel who are here on the Hill today. They are here for one reason, to tell the Minister of Transport that they need a seniors' residence in St. Scholastic. It's a great pleasure for me to receive them here, but it's not normal. It's not normal that they have to travel 150 kilometers to speak to a minister. It's not normal that they have to launch a petition to speak to a minister, and it's not normal that it's taken them months and months to get the attention of the minister. What would be normal, Madam Speaker, would be allow the seniors of St. Scholastic to live at home, to grow old at home without having to leave their town. And everybody deserves to be happy as they grow old. And so I would ask the Minister of Transport to give the green light to a seniors' residence in St. Scholastic. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Gatineau. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today marks the start of the 23rd Outaouais Film Festival. presided by actor, comedian, and director Marie-Lou Wolfe. Over 80 films from 23 countries will be shown throughout the festival, something for every cinephile. To celebrate the 60th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Morocco and Canada, the festival will honor Moroccan culture through films and many cultural activities. And all this, Madam Speaker, as the festival continues to highlight our cinema. 25% of the programming is Québécois. There will also be an exhibition of art by Cédric Sequeira at Cinema Neuf. So I would like to congratulate the director, DJ Faré, and the entire team for their excellent work and their excellent program. The Outaouais Film Festival will run from June 2nd to 10th, and I invite all of my colleagues to Cinema Neuf in Gatineau to appreciate the best in Francophone cinema here in the Outaouais. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for West Nova.
Madam Speaker, this past Tuesday marked the end of the 6-month commercial lobster fishery for fishers in Districts 33 and 34 in my beautiful riding of West Nova. I'd like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank fishers for their hard work. Being out on the water is certainly not an easy job and can be quite unpredictable at times. But that's what makes this profession so unique and special, and more importantly, the reason why fishermen take great pride in what they do. Absolutely. It's with this same pride that I would like to express to them our deep admiration and thank them for the incredible work that they do to consistently provide our community, province, country, and world with the best tasting lobster.
Absolutely.
Thankfully, there's no major mishaps this season, but we should never forget all those who have unfortunately lost at sea over the past years. Our lobstering heritage has a long and profound history, and I would always continue to proudly represent our hardworking lobster fishers here in our nation's capital. Congratulations on another season, and I hope you enjoy your time off.
The honourable member, l'honorable
The honourable member for Glengarry Prescott Russell. Mr. Speaker, June is the start of ALS Awareness Month. Unfortunately, there is no cure right now for ALS, and nothing to reverse or stop the progression of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. As you can imagine, this is a hard reality, not only for ALS patients, but also for their friends and family. I'd like to thank the researchers who work tirelessly and collaboratively to change the way we will treat ALS. They represent hope for the future.
I would also like to thank the family members, the caregivers, nurses, and other individuals who care for these patients. Your services are indispensable and sincerely appreciated. If there is one lesson we can learn from COVID-19, is that collaboration is key to combat disease. Imagine if we applied the same strategy to combat rare diseases to find treatment for rare diseases like ALS. We must do better. I want to thank everyone involved. Merci beaucoup.
The honourable member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, with a heavy heart, I rise today to recognize a remarkable member of the Erin Mills community who passed away on May 30th. Shirley Haslam was a constituent, a strong member of the Mississauga Erin Mills Women Council, and she was a dear friend. Shirley was a teacher for 32 years and volunteered with the Arthritis Society and Scleroderma Society for many years. She leaves behind so many people whose lives she made better, mine included. Shirley had this knack of slipping notes into purses and writing cards to her friends to share her thoughts. These notes were full of love and affirmations. I carry one of them in my wallet, and I know it will always stay there. Her compassion, her love for life, her ability to hustle, her courage to always stand up for what is right, defined her life and the memories that she leaves behind. Mr. Speaker, I share my condolences with her family, her friends, and all the people that called her a hero. May she rest in peace.
The honourable member for North Okanagan, Shuswap.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to thank all the folks in the North Okanagan Shuswap supporting training and development opportunities to ensure a strong and safe Canada of tomorrow. At the John Mingay Memorial Youth Academy in Vernon, for over 20 years, the RCMP, in partnership with School District 22, has provided 16 to 18-year-old students with development opportunities in a week-long law enforcement boot camp at the Academy. Their recent graduation ceremony celebrated 26 cadets who completed their program towards a path of public service. I also joined the BC Fire Training Officers Conference in the Shuswap, where fire training officers from BC connected to share and learn firefighting and life-saving skills. Aerial firefighting tactics, water rescue, and fire dynamics were just some of the skills training provided. It was exciting and reassuring to see youth and adult members learning skills to better protect our neighbors and our neighborhoods from potential risks. I commend and thank everyone from the students to the trainers and sponsors who make initiatives like these a reality to keep our communities more safe and secure. Thank you.
The honourable member for Mount Royal.
Mr. Speaker, Saturday is National Health and Fitness Day in Canada. I plan to swim, run, and play tennis at different locations in my riding on Saturday. I will then join the Fitness Council of Canada social media challenge by posting pictures and using the hashtag Let's Move Canada. I hope that all members will join me in working out and joining the social media challenge on Saturday. We can help show Canadians across the country how important it is for us to exercise to improve our physical and mental health. As we emerge from COVID, it is vital for all Canadians of all ages to get active. Sports and good health go together. The more we work out, the better we feel, and the less we need to strain our healthcare system. I encourage all Canadians to find some physical activity they enjoy this year and to make time to work out. Happy National Health and Fitness Day.
The honourable member for York Simcoe.
Mr. Speaker, with the cost of living spiraling out of control, many Canadians are struggling, worried about their ability to provide for their family's future and the direction that our country's headed in. Sadly, the out-of-control spending and divisive and regressive policies of our Liberal Prime Minister has turned Canada into Canada. Can't afford to buy or rent a home, can't afford gas, can't afford groceries, can't keep your small business open, can't retire, can't protest, can't express dissent, can't get a straight answer from government, can't work hard to get any further ahead. Under the Liberals, everyday life has become unaffordable. There is limited opportunities for students, working parents, seniors, First Nation communities, new Canadians, small business owners, and everyone else. Canadians need relief. They need hope and confidence in the future, Mr. Speaker. That's why Conservatives will continue to stand up for ordinary Canadians and will ensure to fight that the true North remains strong and free.
The honourable member for Mission Matsky Fraser Canyon.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are quickly approaching the one-year anniversary of the wildfire that decimated the village of Lytton on June 30th. While we have been so encouraged by recent progress, residents still remain displaced. Lytton residents deserve so much more. Mr. Speaker, I want to give a shout out to Fort Barron's Estate Winery in Lillooet, BC, and encourage everyone to participate in their fundraiser campaign called Lytton Strong, with a goal to raise $125,000 towards a new rec center in Lytton. The fundraiser doesn't officially kick off until tomorrow, but $50,000 has already been raised. Grapes, part of their Pinot Gris label, are grown from a small vineyard in Lytton, which was thankfully not consumed by the fire. Their 2021 crop will go towards a special edition wine, with 100% of the proceeds going towards the Lytton Strong fundraiser for a community rec center. Please help restore our community, and you'll get some fantastic wine in the process. Check out fortbarons.ca to participate. Come on, Canada, please get behind Lytton. We need your help.
The honourable member for Pickering Uxbridge.
Mr. Speaker, on May 21st, a storm ripped across Ontario and Quebec, which left people in Pickering Uxbridge without power, saw trees down, and property damage throughout our community. During this storm, a tornado touched down in Uxbridge, causing a devastating impact. We saw cars and trucks completely flipped over, several homes and businesses destroyed or damaged, countless trees ripped out of the ground, destroying power lines. The roof of Trinity United Church collapsed, and the beloved Second Wedge Brewing Company, which has been a local hub for craft beer, arts, culture, food, and even the location of our farmers market, was destroyed. Despite the heartbreak and destruction, we saw this community step up in a very big way. I'd like to highlight and thank the incredible local first responders, the various crews responsible for cleanup, repairs, and restoring our electricity, the mayor and council, as well as town staff who worked around the clock to assist their neighbors in a time of need. The combined effort of everyone involved is the purest embodiment of the Canadian spirit and the bonds that hold us together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
It's my distinct pleasure to mark the beginning of Filipino Heritage Month in Canada. I'm privileged to represent a riding that is blessed with one of the largest communities of Filipino Canadians in the nation. It is full of dynamic, creative, and talented people who contribute so much to our society, culture, and economy. From the health sector to the business world, from the arts to the professions, the energy and skills of the Filipino community infuse every part of our lives. June will be full of memorable events for Filipino Canadians and their families. These include gathering at Filipino Plaza in Vancouver Kingsway to proudly raise the Philippines flag. We will celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Filipino Seniors Club of BC. We'll mark Philippines Independence Day and announce exciting steps toward building a Filipino cultural center. There will be pageantry, music, and pride galore. Throughout all, the kindness, generosity, and joy that is so characteristic of the Filipino spirit will shine through and inspire us all. Mabuhay, Filipino Canadians.
The honourable member for Laurentide-Labelle. Mr. Speaker, June is ALS Awareness Month, and today, on Lou Gehrig's Day, I want to make sure that we are all aware of the urgent need to accelerate the Health Canada review process for the Amylyx treatment against amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Last year, Mr. Speaker, I had the opportunity to make a statement about ALS awareness, and I spoke of my past as a caregiver for my father, who fought this terrible disease for 20 years. And he never gave up hope that a treatment to stop it would be discovered. We're almost there, Mr. Speaker. So today, I implore Health Canada to redouble its efforts so that this treatment can be approved quickly. Let's be aware that time is more than running out for many. To all those living with ALS, to their friends and families, and to the organizations working to fight this disease, please continue the fight. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are less safe today than they were when this Liberal government took office. They're not trying to keep communities safe, and they're not making an effort to keep dangerous criminals in jail. Their dangerous bill, C-5, eliminates mandatory jail time for violent crimes like weapons trafficking and possession of a weapon that was illegally obtained. The Liberals don't seem to have a clue when it comes to what to do with serious issues like gun violence. The Liberals are telling Canadians that C-5 reverses conservative policies, but this bill actually repeals laws that were established under previous Liberal governments. The government has kept, in fact, most conservative laws on the books. The changes to the criminal code imposed by Bill C-5 are a radical shift away from long-standing and bipartisan values and will make communities in Canada less safe. Victims, their families, and communities are asking this government to abandon their Bill C-5.
The honourable member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, Pedro de Silva was the first known Portuguese to arrive in pre-Confederation Canada in 1673. He was also the first officially commissioned letter carrier. Hundreds of years later, in 1953, a group of Portuguese immigrants arrived on a boat named Saturnia, docking at Pier 21. These new immigrants started the first of many waves of Portuguese to start a new life in Canada. Now, almost 70 years later, Portuguese Canadians are 100 million strong. Living in communities right across Canada, they are builders, musicians, athletes, business leaders, chefs, teachers, and politicians, among so many other professions. Their contributions and stories have enriched Canadian society and have transformed Canada Canada not only into a better country, but also one of the best countries in the world to live in. As a member of Parliament of the riding with the largest number of Portuguese Canadians, I'm proud to rise in the House today to mark the beginning of Portuguese Heritage Month in Canada. Whether by listening to fado, drinking vinho verde, eating a bifana or pastéis de nata, I invite all Canadians to join me in celebrating all things Portuguese this month. Feliz mês de Portugal. Obrigada, Senhor Presidente.
Before continuing, while I have your attention, I just want to remind everyone that Standing Order 31 statements are 60 seconds. And I know we've let it go a little bit longer, but now it's getting to the point where it's kind of dragging on. And I know they're very important. I don't want to have to cut anyone off. So you practice hard and practice to make it under 60 seconds. Just a request.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. Question orale, l'honorable.
The Honourable Member for Mégontic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the government and the information that it provides must be open by default. That was the big promise the Prime Minister made to Canadians in 2015. 7 years later, that promise has melted like butter in the sun. The Prime Minister is running the most closed, opaque, redacted government we've ever seen. We've just learned of the existence of 72 secret cabinet decrees. 72. Why are the Liberals so afraid to tell Canadians the whole truth and nothing but the truth? The Honourable Minister of Information. I want to thank my colleague for that question. The government has always had as a priority to be transparent with all Canadians while ensuring our responsibility not to compromise national security issues. That is why, through the Investment Canada Act, we are ensuring that investments and transactions benefit the Canadian economy, and I think that all parliamentarians can agree on that, given the need for confidentiality under the Act. The publication of some information on specific transactions is limited. We will protect national interest always. The Honourable Member for Mégontic-L'Érable. You want other Liberal secrets, Mr. Speaker? The SNC-Lavalin scandal, paid vacations, We Charity scandal, Winnipeg lab documents. The Access to Information Commissioner is receiving complaints like never before. And the Prime Minister and his cabinet have made 72 decisions that he's keeping secret. 72. I quote, "It's time to shine more light on the government to ensure that it continues to put people who are its raison d'etre, the Canadians, first." That's what he said in 2015. When did Canadians stop being his priority? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I think that all Canadians who are watching us today understand that the government, and I apologize for using the Prime Minister's name, the government has always shown transparency. As I said to my colleagues on the opposite side, we also have the responsibility as a government to ensure national security, and that is why in some circumstances, Mr. Speaker, in the interest of national security, we will continue to be transparent at all levels, but on some occasions we must preserve confidentiality in the interest of the country. The member for Mégontic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, another murder in Laval this week in the middle of a restaurant in front of customers. People are afraid, but criminals are no longer afraid of the police. People feel abandoned by the Liberal government. Instead of sending a strong message to criminal gangs who use guns, the Prime Minister announces that they will be able to serve their sentences in the community with C5. Even Pierre Elliott Trudeau, back in 1976, understood there must be a minimum sentence for armed criminals. Mr. Speaker, why do the Liberals today want to make life easier for criminals? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, we tabled C5 to address the issue of overrepresentation of Black and Indigenous peoples in the judicial system. Mandatory minimums and parole are measures used by judges when public safety and public order is not an issue and where incarceration is not the solution. We will move forward, Mr. Speaker, with secure reforms to improve our penal justice system.
Royal.
Mr. Speaker, the Montreal Police suspect organized crime was involved when suspects entered a restaurant in Laval last night and shot a man to death while he was having dinner. Criminals are becoming more brazen, yet the Liberals still want to make sure that repeat offenders of violent crime won't face mandatory jail time with their Soft on Crime Bill C-5. Through you, Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister abandon this soft on crime agenda and abandon Bill C-5?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member full well knows that serious crime will always be punished with serious offences will always be punished with serious sentences, Mr. Speaker. The kinds of crimes that he is referring to, Mr. Speaker, will never be the subject of a minimum mandatory penalty because they are serious in terms of their context. Mr. Speaker, minimum mandatory penalties in the provisions that we are addressing, as well as conditional sentence orders, are only to be used by judges when there is no danger to public security, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Fundy Royal.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Canadians are urgently calling for help with rising gun crime rates, but the Liberals' Bill C-5, to be perfectly clear, will put repeat offenders of violent gun crimes back into Canadian communities. In light of out-of-control gun violence, will the Liberals abandon their soft on crime Bill C-5?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're taking action to keep communities safe. We're increasing penalties for those who break the law. We're strengthening protections to prevent gender-based violence. We're fighting gun crime, and we're freezing the market for handguns. This is about the survivors and about all Canadian communities who are too often touched by gun violence. Canadians told us they want to see more action more quickly, and we're following through on our commitment to do more.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie, Mr. Speaker. Quebecers have democratically given their elected representatives in the Quebec National Assembly the mandate to protect the secular nature of the nation. That's what the National Assembly did by passing Bill 21. That's democracy. If the federal Liberals want to play politics in the National Assembly, then they should quit their jobs and run for office on October 3rd in Quebec. But that's not what they chose to do. They chose to run in another parliament to govern Canada. Why don't they focus on that instead of trying to overthrow Quebec's democracy? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, I too am a Quebecer, and I am part of those who have questions about Bill 21. We stand by Quebecers who are shocked by it, like the fact that a young teacher can no longer teach because of how she chooses to manifest her religion. Mr. Speaker, our government is strongly committed to defending the rights and freedoms protected under the Canadian Charter and the Quebec Charter of Rights and Freedoms, particularly freedom of religion and the right to equality. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, they should run in Quebec. They're trying, with some of his colleagues, to overturn the democratic choice of a majority of Quebecers. The federal government is saying, no, you can't protect the secular state of the Quebec. The federal government says no to transfers of immigration powers. The federal government is saying no to Bill 96. The federal government says no all the time. Isn't it trying to convince Quebecers to say yes? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, for once the Bloc is saying why they're here. They're saying they're here in Ottawa to prepare for their separation. That's the number one. They're trying to move forward. We're trying to move forward society. And what I find sad is that putting immigration in the heart of the debate is because immigration is immigrants, men and women, children who are coming here to improve their lives, Mr. Speaker, and they want to play politics on that issue. It's unfortunate.
The Honourable Member for New Westminster, Burnaby.
Half of people who go to food banks and half of people of those are handicapped. A year ago, the Liberals tabled legislation on benefits and did nothing about it. They had a year to consult, and today we are being offered the same empty bill. The minister says it will take another 3 years before people can get something. Why are the Liberals always claiming to be interested or to care for the people with a handicap, but they need to do it right away, right now. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Canada Disability Benefit has the potential to lift hundreds of thousands of Canadians, working-age Canadians with disabilities, out of poverty. Since we committed to creating this benefit, we have worked non-stop with the disability community, with provinces and territories. We are a lot closer to where we were to getting this done, Mr. Speaker. But let me tell you, we need to be absolutely sure that provinces and territories don't claw back existing benefits. We need to be sure that the needs and the desires of the disability community are reflected in this benefit, and that's why we're working with all of these partners to make sure people are better off.
The Honourable Member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, thousands of Canadians with disabilities are living in poverty. This government did not prioritise them after their unnecessary election, and now we have lost a year. This morning, the minister said it could take up to 3 years before even the first person receives the Canada Disability Benefit. The Liberals started promising this support in 2015. With these timelines, the Liberals will have taken 10 years to get people the support they need. Why did this government turn their backs on Canadians living with disabilities by wasting a year?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Canada Disability Benefit is about lifting people out of poverty. It's about addressing the financial insecurity faced by far too many working-age Canadians with disabilities in our country. I was so excited weeks ago when we passed the unanimous consent motion in this House. Yes. All parties agreed this should be a priority, and if we want to make this happen quickly, let's do that again and get this done.
Absolutely. The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
While they claim to care about the safety of Canadians, the fact is, since this government was elected, gun crimes have gone up steadily every year. They talk a big game, but the fact is they have ignored gun safety and put politics first at every opportunity. Now, they want to allow violent offenders to avoid jail and serve their sentences in their communities with their victims. Why is this government so committed to putting criminals ahead of victims?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, we have introduced Bill C-5 to attack systemic overrepresentation of Black and Indigenous peoples in our criminal justice system. It attacks minimum mandatory penalties and allows conditional sentence orders where public safety is not in danger, where incarceration is not the best either for the community or the victim or the perpetrator, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, with respect to violent crime, we've increased penalties with respect to guns trafficking and guns, and we have, as has been pointed out, introduced bold legislation capping handguns in this country.
Well, member for Calgary-Midnapore.
You know, Mr. Speaker, Conservative MPs would welcome an honest discussion about how gun crime has gone up every year since this government was elected. The fact is, their legislation, C-5, eliminates mandatory jail time for violent gun crime and allows for criminals to serve their sentences in the comfort of their own homes, something their victims can no longer do. So why is this government so committed to putting criminals ahead of victims?
Minister.
Speaker, nothing could be further from the truth. Let's have an honest discussion. Serious offenses, Mr. Speaker, will always have serious consequences in our system. The kinds of penalties that we're attacking by eliminating certain minimum mandatory penalties, by allowing conditional sentence orders, are precisely those kinds of sentences where a person, the community, victims are not served, where the problem is something else, a health problem, a problematic addiction, for example. Mr. Speaker, we're moving ahead with these reforms to address systemic overrepresentation of Black and Indigenous peoples in the system to make the system more just.
Well, member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Speaker, Canadian research shows that when the extreme intoxication defence was available, it was successful in 30% of cases. 71% of these cases involved male violence against women. Yesterday, we heard from the Minister of Justice that this defence would only be used in a small minority of cases. But I want to remind the Minister, even one is too many. The lack of an immediate response from this government in Canada is dangerous. When will this Liberal government take the direction of the Supreme Court and close this loophole?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, as I said to the honourable member, and I want to reassure Canadians first and foremost that this defence is in fact available in only a very small fraction of cases. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, we are looking at the Supreme Court decision. We understand the seriousness of the situation, Mr. Speaker, and I can assure all parliamentarians in this House and indeed all Canadians that we are looking at ways in order to address the situation.
The honourable member for
Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister talks a big game when it comes to public safety, but he's clearly being lax in this area. For example, his changes to the parole board resulted in the release of a violent criminal who murdered Marlène Lévesque. In addition, federal inmates now have access to needles, but drug trafficking in penitentiaries continues to increase, and now C5 will let dangerous criminals serve their sentences at home instead of in a penitentiary. The Prime Minister has rolled out the red carpet for criminals. What's he done recently for the victims? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we stand with the victims and we are improving with the justice system, in fact, to help victims as well as to help Canadian society. With Bill C5, we are addressing the issue of overrepresentation of Blacks and Indigenous peoples in the system. In cases where public safety is not an issue, is not under jeopardy, with conditional sentences and the elimination of certain mandatory minimums, we can address the real issues, helping the victims and helping society. The member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles, talking about tackling the real problems. If we talk about illegal gun trafficking, which is a scourge in Canada, instead of getting to the root of the problem, the Prime Minister is attacking law-abiding people. Law enforcement has repeatedly said that culprits are street gangs and organized crime that operate in different parts of Canada using passages like the Akwesasne Reserve. It's no secret that this is the busiest border crossing in Canada. Why has the Prime Minister not yet met with the Chief of the Reserve on this issue to work with him to address the problem of illegal weapons in our streets?
Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would remind the honourable member that the chief from Akwesasne actually appeared at the Public Safety Committee and was able to present their concerns on the border. Last year, CBSA seized a record number of illegal firearms. We realize we have to do more, which is why we invested over $350 million in law enforcement to stop the flow of illegal gun trafficking. And what did the Conservatives do? They opposed these investments. When it comes to protecting our borders from illegal gun trafficking, the Conservatives are all talk and no action.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' soft-on-crime approach only benefits criminals. Liberal softness is excessive tolerance for lawbreakers. And the poor victims? Our kids aren't even protected. This government is not sensitive to law-abiding citizens and their safety. A responsible government needs to strengthen public safety. Why is this government favoring criminals at the expense of the victims?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We do have a plan when it comes to public safety, and I'm always curious why the Conservatives say they're the party that supports victims, unless those victims are the victims of gun crime, and then they're demonized and they support the gun lobby in attacking them. We put in place stronger background checks. The Conservatives oppose them. We invested over $350 million in law enforcement to prosecute gangs and stop trafficking at the border. The Conservatives opposed it. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to keeping Canadians safe and keeping guns out of hands of criminals, the Conservatives have no plan, and we do.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, Canada is a paradise for the mafia. That's what last week former Italian prosecutor Roberto Scarpatino said, and he fought the mafia all his life. When an Italian prosecutor says that Canada is a magnet because it's easier for a mafia man to get rich here than elsewhere, it's time to get moving. Canada is a paradise for all criminal groups, and that's why we need a registry of criminal organizations to identify them and facilitate police work. This morning, I introduced Bill C-279 to create this registry. Will the government support it?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
We're working closely with the Quebec government to reduce gun violence, and the Minister of Public Safety recently attended a forum in Montreal. We've directed $40 million under our Guns and Gangs funds to the Legault government. We're finalizing a transfer under our Building Safer Communities Fund to prevent gun crime specifically for Quebec, and the Minister continues to engage directly with his counterparts in Quebec.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. They're so effective, Mr. Speaker, that yesterday in Laval, a Mafia associate was shot in a restaurant in front of children. C-21 is clearly not curbing conflict between crime groups. The source of the wave of shootings in Montreal is organized crime. It imports illegal weapons and then uses them in our streets. The government needs to face this reality and help the police deal with this scourge. Do members of the government understand the urgency of creating a registry of criminal organizations?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. We do take the issue of gun safety very seriously, and that's why we introduced a bill this week that is going to bring in the strongest measures that we've seen in a generation, including a freeze on handguns, the #1 gun that is used in crime. We're taking the issue seriously. We're working with stakeholders across the country, including the police, to make sure that we keep Canadians safe.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Unfortunately, that's nothing logical. What is being proposed is nothing new. It's the same principle that applies to the terrorist organizations registry. Right now, being a member of a recognized terrorist organization is illegal and punishable by arrest. Last year alone, the government added 13 groups to the registry, including the Proud Boys. All the better, but why is the government treating crime gangs, motorcycle gangs, the mafia and street gangs more lightly? If the minister believes that a registry is useful to fight terrorism, doesn't he think it would also be as useful to fight against organized crime?
Parliamentary Secretary.
And I'd like to take a moment to thank the Honourable Member for his passion on this issue and his advocacy on the issue. It is important. That's why we've brought forward legislation that will keep guns out of the hands of criminals. We also put in place background checks when we introduced Bill C-71. We're investing in law enforcement to prosecute gangs and stop trafficking at the border. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the issue of gun violence, this government is taking action, and I'm proud to stand on the record that we have.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Speaker, when urban millennials read the Youthful Cities Index, it's clear the Minister of Housing has failed. The average young person's budget takes a $750 a month hit just for living in a city. A new shiny savings account for a home won't help these millennials as inflation outpaces their wages. There are no savings to be had. The only thing that this minister has delivered to them in 7 years is a doubling of housing prices. Does the minister comprehend all of his empty talk on housing affordability has made a whole generation of Canadian millennials cynical about politics and about this government?
Cynical.
Honourable Minister for Housing.
That's a lot of hot air to cover 10 years of inaction on housing. We're the government that brought back national leadership on housing, Mr. Speaker. We're investing more than ever before to help Canadians access their dream of home ownership. Every time in this House, when we've brought measures to help Canadians access...
I'm going to have to ask the Minister just to pause for a moment. Okay. If I can, I understand the Minister is rather far from the Speaker's chair, so I just want to make sure that I can hear everything, and I want everyone else to hear the answer. The Minister, if you can start right from the top.
Speaker, the reason they can't handle my answers is because I'm exposing their bankrupt policies and their fake rhetoric in this House, Mr. Speaker. For 10 years, they had a chance to invest in affordable housing and provide national national leadership on an important issue for Canadians. And what do? They downloaded housing to provinces and municipalities. And you would think that they would learn from their time in opposition. And even today, their members of their caucus always talk about how we should withdraw from our affordable housing investments. Shame on them, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies. I just want to remind the honourable members, if I can have your attention. Order. 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 If I can have your attention, I just want to remind you that if you're going to heckle and the person next to you has a question or an answer for that matter, it's not good to shout because you're within reach of the microphone. So just a little pointer for you. The honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
In Fort Nelson, BC, the rising cost of gas and tax increases is having a huge impact on small businesses already struggling to survive. Dave Milner and Bev Vanderstein of the Fort Nelson Chamber of Commerce warned that if urgent action isn't taken by this Prime Minister, more businesses will fail, leaving the people unemployed and families in crisis. According to RBC, there's not a single city in Canada that is affordable for young people. These businesses, the people that run them, and young Canadians are the backbone of our communities. Why does this government continue to punish them?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member. I agree with him that the small businesses are the backbone of all of our communities across Canada. It's why throughout the pandemic we were there for them, supporting them every single step of the way. I'm so pleased that we continue to work with small businesses, and I would encourage that we all work together to support our businesses and the very wonderful workers that they employ so that they can get on this economic road to recovery, because they very much are part of our economic future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Brantford Brant.
Mr. Speaker, when we talk about the fuel crisis, this tone-deaf response from the government is that they have Canadians back. They cite the carbon tax rebate and, of course, the misinformation on cutting taxes for the middle class. My constituents are struggling. They are fearful. They are angry. The challenge is paying for fuel at the expense of feeding and clothing their kids. Start listening to Canadians. Instead of blaming external factors, the government has the power to do the right thing. Will they immediately cut the crippling carbon and excise taxes on gasoline?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to kids and families, our government has been there every step of the way. In 2015, we introduced the Canada Child Benefit, lifting 300,000 Canadian families out of poverty. And in fact, in that member's riding of Brantford Brant, families will soon who have children in childcare be receiving a 25% reduction in fees. And by the end of this year, that fee will be reduced by 50%. That might be up to $400 or $500 a month in people's pockets. That's real money helping Canadian families, helping Canadian kids meet the high cost of living. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, workers and communities across Canada are deeply concerned about this government's hands-off approach to rail safety. At the Transport Committee, we heard witness after witness call for government action to keep workers safe. Among the committee's recommendations is ensuring that private rail police aren't the ones to investigate workplace incidents. Now, will the minister please tell us why, in 2022, multi-billion-dollar rail corporations are still allowed to investigate themselves when workers are killed on the job?
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my honourable colleague for his question. Rail safety is a priority for our government. We've been working closely with stakeholders, with rail companies to ensure that we have the highest standard of safety in Canada. We've implemented programs to support communities so they can enhance safeties at crossings. We are following up on recommendations by the Transportation Safety Board. Mr. Speaker, we will stop at nothing to ensure that we have the highest safety in Canada. Thank you.
Nous voulons veiller à avoir la plus grande sécurité au Canada. Le député d'Edmonton-Strathcona. Les Albertains sont dévastés par la crise des drogues toxiques. Un nombre record d'Albertains ont perdu leur vie à cause de l'approvisionnement en drogues empoisonnées l'an dernier. Même situation qu'en Colombie-Britannique. C'est une crise nationale de santé publique et le gouvernement fédéral a l'obligation de sauver des vies. Hier, Les libéraux auraient pu suivre les conseils fondés sur les preuves de leurs propres experts. Au lieu de cela, qu'ont-ils fait? Ils ont voté avec les conservateurs et choisi de continuer à laisser les Canadiens et les Canadiennes mourir. Pourquoi le gouvernement pense-t-il que les personnes vivant en Colombie-Britannique sont plus importantes que celles vivant en Alberta?
Minister for Mental Health.
L'honorable ministre de la Santé mentale.
L'honorable député de Manicouagan, est-ce qu'il y a un rappel au règlement?
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président. Il n'y avait pas d'interprétation.
Question? Non? OK, je vais demander, I'll ask the honourable member.
Je vais demander à l'honorable député de bien vouloir répéter sa question. Monsieur le Président, les Albertains sont dévastés par la crise des drogues toxiques. Les Albertains sont dévastés par la crise des drogues toxiques. Est-ce qu'on entend la traduction? Non, il n'y a pas de traduction. Il n'y a pas de traduction.
L'anglais est au français, le français est à l'anglais. So can you hear me in French now? Oui, c'est beau. It's good. Okay, very good. We'll start the question over again. The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, people in Alberta are devastated by the toxic drug crisis. A record number of Albertans lost their lives to the poison drug supply last year. Mr. Speaker, our situation is the same as in BC. This is a national public health crisis, and the federal government has an obligation to act. Yesterday, the Liberals voted with the Conservatives against the advice of their own experts to let Canadians die. I would like to know why the lives of Albertans are not seen as important as those in BC.
Honourable Minister for Mental Health.
Mr. Speaker, our government is totally committed to end the overdose crisis nationally. Bill 216 would have immediately decriminalized possession of illegal drugs without addressing the complex issues of implementation. Our government is moving forward on decriminalization through a responsible framework and in partnership with a jurisdiction that has a comprehensive plan, including health and social supports, public engagement, law enforcement training, and oversight and evaluation. Successful implementation of the exemption in BC will inform the approach of other jurisdictions as well as a future national approach.
Honourable member for Newmarket, Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, we know that working-age persons with disabilities in Canada are twice as likely to live in poverty as those without disabilities. This is unacceptable. And that's why this government is taking historic measures to build disability-inclusive Canada. This morning, the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Disability Inclusion tabled legislation for the Canada Disability Benefit. Can the Minister please share with us how this will help lift Canadians with disabilities out of poverty?
Great question. The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, and thank you to my friend from Newmarket, Aurora, for his tireless work and advocacy for persons with disabilities. On this 6th annual National Accessibility Week, I was proud to reintroduce legislation for the Canada Disability Benefit, an income supplement for working-age persons with disabilities. The CDB has the potential to significantly reduce poverty, to improve financial security, and to help hundreds of thousands of people. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to correct the long-standing social and economic exclusion that has hurt far too many Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
Well, member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, I want to make sure I have this right. First, the Liberals impose a tariff on fertilizer that only punishes Canadian farmers. Second, they ignore any plea for an exemption on that fertilizer purchased before March 2nd. Third, they're offering no compensation, meaning higher taxes and input costs are crushing Canadian farm families. So how many other G7 countries are enforcing a fertilizer tariff and putting their farmers at a competitive disadvantage?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives keep proposing policies that they haven't really fully thought through. Rising gas prices is a global phenomenon, we all know, due in part to the war that Putin started in Ukraine. But if we implement a tax holiday like the Conservatives have been proposing for a number of weeks now, energy companies could actually pocket...
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. I am having a hard time hearing her answer, and I'm sure the Honourable Member for Foothills wants to hear her answer as well. So I'm going to ask everyone to calm down, take a deep breath. The chatter is starting to build again, so the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, it seems that my answer is garnering a lot of interest on the other side of this House. I think that the gist of my response is that the Conservatives have been proposing a number of economic measures that they haven't thought through. Whether it's with respect to the gas tax or with respect to fertilizer, what they're proposing is simply a tax holiday which in no way guarantees that the ultimate consumer or our farmers will benefit at the end of the day.
Member for Foothills.
Well, please allow me, Mr. Speaker, to actually answer the question for the Parliamentary Secretary. The answer is 0. Canada is the only country punishing its farmers with a tariff on fertilizer. Right. Our G7 allies are doing everything they possibly can to ensure their farmers can increase their yields in a time of global food insecurity. Here, the Liberals are beating our farmers down with increased taxes, red tape, and without any consultation with stakeholders, a mandate to reduce fertilizer use by 30%. So knowing this, is the fertilizer tariff just another way for the Liberals to impose their activist agenda and force our farmers to use less fertilizer? Not yet.
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Monsieur le Président, alors vous le savez, on a un objectif de...
We have an objective to reduce the... we're not reducing fertilizer, we're reducing the impacts. So it is very important for our food security. So we are working very closely with industry, with Fertilizer Canada, and with many sectors who are supporting us, who want to do more and who appreciate the subsidies that we're providing to them. For example, for clean technologies and for good practices. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Regina Louvain.
This government's doing nothing for food security, Mr. Speaker. Day after day, Liberals claim Saskatchewan farm families are actually making money from their carbon tax. That's hogwash. In fact, a producer told me his rebates won't even cover 2 weeks' worth of fuel since the Liberals' last carbon tax unfair increase. My friend's cost to rent his equipment now is $90,000 a week, Mr. Speaker. So as the G7 countries around the world provide tax relief, and with the world's third largest producer of wheat in a war zone right now, what is this government doing to not punish our farmers and allow them to produce the food that the world needs, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that we're here to support our farmers and to increase production. We're in a situation with the illegal war on Ukraine. We know that we are trying to support Canadians. We know that Canadian producers want to do more. The government is there to help them in different ways. We had a budget in terms of with historic investments in agriculture last year to show how much we are there for the agricultural sector in different ways. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Well, Mr. Speaker, no farms, no food. Fertilizer prices are up 50% this year, plus 20% more since the Liberals put the tariff on. Now that's a 70% increase since last year. Now they say not to bite the hand that feeds you, but this Liberal government has bitten the hand right off. Their poor decisions are pricing farmers out of business. Now without farmers, Canadians don't have food. Speaker, without farmers, where will our food come from?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, our government has offered support to farmers, unprecedented, in fact. We're talking about $4 billion. Are we ready? Can we continue? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So once again, our government is the one that has done the most in history to help our farmers. We're talking about $4 billion of support for farmers last year, and that is unprecedented. So for example, the agri-environment measures, and I can tell you that our farmers are part of the solution into climate change because they're the first affected, and they know that. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes, Verchères. Mr. Speaker, the federal government has literally just stolen $342 million from Quebec. It had promised to pay out the amounts remaining in the Public Transit Infrastructure Fund and the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund to Quebec. This was enshrined in the Canada-Quebec Infrastructure Agreement, which the government signed in 2018. But Monday in committee, the Minister of Infrastructure said that he was reneging on this promise. Is he going to immediately change his mind and announce that he will pay out to Quebec the $342 million that his government promised?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, our government and our minister is committed to getting funds out for transit and infrastructure right across this country, including Quebec. But the minister has been clear. Quebec needs to put forward the projects that we can then support. We are committed to our agreements, ensuring that Quebec has the amounts that have been promised, but they need to step up and identify those projects, and we will ensure that transit and infrastructure continues to be built right across this country.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes, Verchères. Mr. Speaker, an agreement should be respected. Not only is Ottawa cutting $342 million, but it also threatening to remove $4 billion more by unilaterally changing the deadline for infrastructure projects. The agreement signed gave Quebec up to 2025 to submit projects, but Ottawa is moving this up to 2023. This means that Quebec only has 10 months to submit projects it was supposed to have 3 years to prepare. It could lose out on $4 billion because of Ottawa's complete lack of respect for Quebecers. It's their money. Will the government honor its promise and give the money to Quebec?
Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, we haven't cut a single cent for transit or infrastructure for Quebec, but these projects need to be identified by the Quebec government to tell us what are their priorities, and then we will happily move forward in these agreements. But, Mr. Speaker, this is Canadian taxpayer investments in transit and infrastructure right across this country, and we want to ensure that those projects are identified and that this money can roll out across Quebec to ensure that they have the transit and infrastructure they need.
River Crowfoot.
Mr. Speaker, we have seen democratic decline in Canada under these Liberals, and this is no more true than with the Winnipeg Lab documents. And the NDP have completely betrayed themselves and the promises they made in the last election. It turns out that this coalition is serving up the worst of both parties. The Liberals are adopting NDP economics, and the NDP are adopting the Liberals' culture of secrecy. Why is this NDP Liberal government blocking Parliament's access to these documents?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we have a different definition of blocking. The truth is the opposition Conservatives asked to look at these documents. They were given the opportunity at NSCOP, and they didn't want to take that opportunity, which is fine, Mr. Speaker. So we provided another mechanism that was based on the same mechanism they used for Afghan detainees. It was a system that Mr. Harper and many of those in his caucus, or then who are here today, thought was a good system. We agreed. We offered it. So I would ask the member opposite why he is refusing to look at these documents. It's a very bizarre thing to stand up and demand to look at something that we're trying to show him.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
That's just one of many actions being taken by this NDP Liberal coalition government. Let me give you other examples. Ministers can now end democratic debate without notice, just at will. In addition to that, of course, the documents are being refused to be granted with regards to the study of the Emergencies Act. In addition to that, the members opposite are now moving Bill C-11, which will shut down our ability to use the internet with freedom. It will control what we can see, what we can hear, and what we can post online. So the question is, why is the government so determined to kill democracy?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Now, Mr. Speaker, I was in the opposition when Stephen Harper was the Prime Minister. I recall an over 200-page handbook on how to frustrate committees, shut down the House, and obstruct process. I find it...
Okay, I'm sure everybody wants to hear the answer to that question. I'll ask the Honourable Government House Leader from the top, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And that brings me to the question of these documents. Again, not only can they see the documents, but we said that if they want to challenge the redactions, they can do so to an independent panel of jurists that will make a decision on what can be made public. So, yes, they can look at them. Yes, they can challenge the redactions if they want them to be public. So, excuse me for being confused as to why they're getting upset when I'm saying, yes, you can. So, come and look at the documents. They're available. There's a process you can participate in. Other parliamentarians are participating in it, and I think they're confusing themselves with the previous government, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Saskatchewan.
Speaker, the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance in Stockholm is the global authority on evaluating the performance of democracies. It provides objective analysis on the health of democracies. In the key category of checks on government, Canada's score has dropped precipitously since 2015. We're now lower than the United States and every single country in Western Europe. Weakening checks on government power is weakening Canadian democracy, and international experts are noticing. When will the government face up to the problem that they are causing and commit to reversing democratic decline in Canada?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Let's talk about some of the things we don't do. What we don't do is use parliamentary secretaries in committee to control those committees and not allow members to ask questions. That's what the members on the opposite side did. They frustrated committees. They used parliamentary secretaries to shut down debate and not allow democratic processes to work. It was command and control all the time, 24/7. Instead, what we've said, Mr. Speaker, and this line of questioning, again, confuses me. If they want to look at documents, we've offered not only one, but two separate processes. They have an opportunity to challenge redactions, to make them public. They don't get to decide what goes public. We don't get to decide what goes public. National security needs to be independently protected, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lac Saint Louis. The Canadian aerospace sector is a leader worldwide and a major asset for the Quebec and Canadian economy. The government continues to support the Quebec aerospace industry with concrete gestures because we know that that's the right thing to do. Can the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry update this House on the spin-offs from our support for the supply chain and especially for aerospace workers? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for an excellent question and for his diligent work that he does every day for his region. I was very proud of all aerospace workers, and I was proud to announce that our government has awarded an $800 million contract to Bell Textron Canada, located in Mirabel, Quebec, to extend the life of the Royal Canadian Air Force's fleet of 85 CH-146 Griffin helicopters to the mid-2030s. That's great news for the workers in Mirabel. It's excellent news for Quebecers and for all of the aerospace industry in Canada.
The Honourable Member for Niagara Falls.
Mr. Speaker, Budget 2022 allocates $25 million to the continued mandatory use of the ArriveCan app, yet it failed to extend important tourism recovery programs for businesses who still needed the help. This government has been warned that the ArriveCan app is impacting travel to Canada. What is more important to this Liberal NDP government? Funding ArriveCan, which clogs up our borders and deters visits, or scrapping this app to help achieve tourism recovery in Niagara and throughout Canada?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Since the beginning of the pandemic, our government's focus has been the health and safety of Canadians. The most recent data indicates that the Omicron wave has passed its peak, allowing us to move towards a longer-term approach to managing COVID. As we've said since the beginning of the pandemic, Canada's border measures will remain flexible and adaptable, guided by science and prudence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, the affordability crisis increasingly means that there are two kinds of families in Canada: families who own homes and families who never will. Gimmicks like the first-time homebuyer incentive have failed to improve access to homeownership, while taxes, red tape, and ridiculously long development timelines chase private capital out of construction, limit supply, and lead to ever-increasing prices. When will the minister admit that cheap gimmicks and talking points don't build houses?
Well, Minister of Housing.
The member is absolutely right. One of the key tools to make sure that there's more supply for Canadians is to actually invest in housing supply. That's exactly what the Housing Accelerator Fund is about. We will invest $4 billion in municipal governments to make sure that we invest in their systems so that they can build more supply and that they can build more supply faster. We also banned foreign ownership of Canadian residential real estate for 2 years so that we can free more houses for Canadians to purchase. We're also putting together different programs to enable first-time home buyers to access their dream of home ownership. That's what federal leadership looks like. It's one thing to talk about doing something, it's another thing to actually get the job done.
Well, member for York Simcoe.
Mr. Speaker, last year, Canadians Bank made record-breaking profits and paid out massive bonuses to their executives, but then raised fees for Canadians already struggling to get by. Now big banks are shuttering local branches in smaller communities all across the country, including CIBC branches in Pefferlaw and Brecken and Scotiabank in Cannington and many others. With these closures, rural residences, especially seniors, are left with no suitable options to do their banking. Is this just another example of Liberals leaving rural Canadians behind in small towns?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, here on this side of the House, we take our responsibility seriously. That's why when we saw that our large banks were making record profits during the pandemic, we decided to propose a tax measure so as to ensure that banks would pay a one-time tax into the Canadian economy so that we can give that money back to Canadians in the form of reduced childcare costs, in the form of reduced dental care costs, in the form of one-time payments for vulnerable Canadians, Mr. Speaker. That is what we intend to do.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my riding of Kitchener South Hespeler, I've seen our Main Street businesses find new ways to stay open and battle throughout the pandemic. Our government has been there for small businesses. Can the minister responsible for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario inform the House about what our government is doing for Main Street businesses across Southern Ontario?
Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. And I'd like to thank the member from Kitchener South Hespeler for her steadfast advocacy for small businesses in her community. Our government recognizes the importance of keeping our main streets vibrant and supporting our small businesses. That's why we created the My Main Street program, which is providing over $23 million in support for small businesses and communities across Southern Ontario to help our amazing main streets and support our communities. We will continue to make investments that improve the lives of Canadians and help our communities and our economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Welcome back. Establishing Ojibwe National Urban Park has been a decade in the making and is the work of Bill C-248. The City of Windsor, Caldwell First Nations have written every member of Parliament urging them to support this specific legislation. During yesterday's debate, all parties made their support loud and clear except for the Liberals who are opposed. Unbelievable. The people of Windsor and Essex County are in favor of this. Indigenous communities are in favor of this. Environmentalists, unions, and businesses are all in favor of C-248. Why is the government attempting to create problems on a project that is good for climate change, the economy, tourism, and should unite Parliament, not tear it apart?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for the question. And just to remind him and all members that our government is committed to conserving and protecting Canada's biodiversity, wildlife, and habitat in urban settings, in more rural settings. And just to remind the member and to all members here that Canada is home to extraordinary wildlife and natural landscapes, and we know this is something Canadians care very, very deeply about, and I'm going to be very happy to talk more to the honourable member about his particular initiative.
Member for Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, I met with Afghan refugees who have been stranded in Poland since August of 2021. These people put their trust in Canada to give them safe haven. Poland has done all it can. These refugees will soon be penniless and homeless. Some analysts suggest that the Afghan refugee program has been de facto shut down and that Canada has abandoned them. Mr. Speaker, what does this failure tell the world of Canada's commitment to those who stood shoulder to shoulder with us? Their lives are not pawns. Bring them to Canada now, or will the minister admit that people were misled?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Our governments remain very firm in our commitment to resettle at least 40,000 Afghan refugees. And despite all the challenges, there are now more than 14,500 Afghan refugees who have started their new life here in Canada. We continue to process application to Afghan refugees days and night. We have mobilized our entire global network to process visa and issue them on an urgent basis. Mr. Speaker, we will not stop until we achieve our goal of resettling at least 40,000 refugees from Afghanistan.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for questions today.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue on a point of order. Mr. Speaker, there has been consultation amongst the parties, and I believe that if you seek it, you will see that there is unanimous consent for the following motion. That this House calls HoC Canada before the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage to shed light on its involvement in a case of alleged sexual assault committed in 2018. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good to sir.
All those opposed to the member moving the motion will please say no. The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those who are opposed to the motion will please say nay. Carried.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge is writing on the point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, during question period, I would like to have something clarified by the member from the Bloc Québécois on their question with regards to organized crime. The Italian community and the Italian-Canadian community has been a pillar of Canada for over 100 years, and the individuals, including myself, I would like those comments made by the honourable member to be clarified. If an apology has to be issued, I wish the member to apologize to the Italian-Canadian community on month of June being Italian Heritage Month and today being Festa della Repubblica. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does the Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord wish to respond to the point of order? Mr. Speaker, I apologize. I did not understand the objection from my colleague. He would ask me to apologize for what exactly? I would ask the Honourable Member to repeat the point of order and be a bit more concise.
Clarify, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand from the Honourable Member's question. I do see clarification that the Honourable Member mentioned the word mafia and mentioned the word Italian prosecutor in the same sentence, linking the two being the mafia being an Italian organization and organized crime only being an Italian organization. Italians have suffered from this for too many years. It's broad stereotyping, and I wish an apology, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, I don't understand my colleague's objection. What I quoted the Italian prosecutor, Roberto Scapiletto. I can't say that that's a German prosecutor. That's an Italian prosecutor. There's nothing wrong there. And he fought the mafia his entire life. It's on Wikipedia, Mr. Speaker. So I really don't understand what there is that's offensive in what I said. I simply reported the facts.
Okay.
Pointe qui est décédé il y a pas si longtemps.
And I have the greatest respect for the Italian community. I feel at home in Italy. I love Italy, so I certainly had no intention whatsoever to insult Italians, but I certainly can't say that Prosecutor Scapilato is of another nationality aside from Italian. That's the fact. The Honourable Member.
Island is rising on a point of order.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The point of order relates to Standing Orders 16 and 18. We'll, at some point today, be discussing them. But it grieved me to see a whole class of kids, probably grades 3 and 4 from Oakville, Ontario, be subjected to the violations of Standing Orders 16 and 18 in a very raucous, rude, and on all sides, I suppose we'd have to say, heckling and yelling back and forth. Please, now that we're back in person in this place, consider the examples we set for school children who visit this place.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank the Honourable Member for intervention, although I want to remind the Honourable Members, I think I'll remind them of 3 things. The first one is, when we're in the House, I received some concerns yesterday about something that was said. And sometimes it's not intentional, but try to think through, even when you're heckling or when you're shouting across, even though we don't want you to heckle, but try to think it through, well, how will that affect someone else's feelings? The other one is when we're talking, heckling is something that we want to keep to a minimum in the chamber. So please, it was a little raucous, but it wasn't so much heckling. It was just talking amongst yourselves, which is nice because you're talking. But if you're talking while somebody else is trying to answer or someone else is trying to ask a question, it makes it difficult for everyone else. And third, please don't refer to anybody in the gallery. You're not allowed to. That's not allowed in the standing orders. So now we're going to continue. Oh, we have a point of order. Un rappel au règlement, l'honorable ministre de la...
Point of order, the honourable member for health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have the honour to table in both official languages the first report on rapid testing for COVID.
Well, we have another point of order. The honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Simply to in light of your statement, as you were referencing, not pointing out, not referencing people in the gallery, I may have at that moment been waving to my 6-year-old in the gallery. So, Mr. Speaker, I do apologize for waving to my son Matthew, who's joined us here today.
I want to remind the honourable members that we can't do indirectly what we can't do directly. The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Island.
Mr. Speaker, on my point of order, I do seek clarification. As I understand the rules, it is completely forbidden for a member to say what only the Speaker has the right to say. We recognize in the gallery so-and-so, the premier of such and such. But I want clarification that when I reference a school group, I'm not recognizing people in the gallery in any way that violates our rules. As I understand the rules, if I'm incorrect, I'd like to know. Thank you.
Once again, back to square one where we talked about you cannot do indirectly what you can't do directly. And referencing someone, as far as I can tell, is... I don't want to start having an argument here, but I think we'll go to the honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola, and then if there's still an argument after, we'll come back. The honourable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just on the same point of order, I just wanted to stand up and say I respect you as the chair and expect you to hold the rules of this place and to make rulings when people are out of line. Thank you.
Yeah. The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Island still has a point of order? No?
Speaker, I merely want to understand the rules. I've read the rules. I know the rules. I'm not challenging your ruling. I'm asking for clarity. That's all.
That's a fair order. That's a fair question. I will go back, review them, and make sure and come back with an answer for the honourable member. Thank you. It being 3:25, pursuant to order made on Tuesday, May 31st, 2022, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion to concur in the 4th report of the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security. Convoquez les députés.
Call in the members.
La question est la...
The question is the following one. That the fourth report of the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security presented on Monday, May 30th, 2022 be concurred in.
The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote for members participating in person. Que tous ceux qui...
All those in favor of the motion will please rise.
Mr. Holland.
Mr. Holland.
Mr. Macaulay-Cardigan.
Mr. Macaulay-Cardigan.
Ms. Bennett.
Ms. Bennett.
Ms. Qualtrough.
Ms. Qualtrough.
Monsieur Rodriguez.
Monsieur Rodriguez.
Mr. Champagne.
Monsieur Champagne.
Ms. Tassi.
Ms. Tassi.
Madame Pittspa-Taylor.
Madame Pittspa-Taylor.
Ms. Jazek.
Ms. Jazek.
Ms. Chagger.
Ms. Chagger.
Ms. Duncan, Etobicoke North.
Ms. Duncan, Etobicoke